Good morning and welcome to the first 2022 broadcast of Let It Be Known. Unfortunately, we start with some sad news in the NNPA family. Dr. Helen Chavis Otho, the beloved sister of NNPA President and CEO Dr. Benjamin Chavis, has died at the age of 89. Dr. Otho was academically accomplished, attaining her PhD in 1971 and becoming head of the English department at St. Augustine's College as her career progressed. She was principled, dedicated to enhancing excellence in the literary and other arts, and to understanding African American history, as well as that of her distinguished ancestor, John Chavis, for whom a park in Raleigh, North Carolina is named. Dr. Chavis's capacity, diligence, intellect, and humanity were an asset to the Black community, and she will be sorely missed by all who knew her and all whom she touched. Our deepest condolences goes out to the family of our president and CEO, Dr. Benjamin F. Chavis Jr., who joins us now from North Carolina. Good morning, Dr. Chavis.
Good morning, Stacy. And on behalf of the Chavis family, we thank you and we thank all of the publishers and editors and journalists from around the United States who've expressed their condolences at the passing of my sister, Dr. Helen Chavis Otho. She passed away on New Year's Day after a short period of illness. I was so pleased that we got a chance to spend Christmas together. And she was in great health, but these things happen. She had a massive stroke and did not recover. So we, pray that she's now resting in peace, and that her labor and her impact will last for generations to come. She was the scholar in the family, academic scholar. She had taught at about 6 different HBCUs over a 70-year period.
Wow.
Teaching college, and also she founded the John Chavis Historical Society, and she was a strong supporter of the Black press. A lot of her commentaries and editorials were in the Carolinian or the Wilmington Journal or the Carolina Times in Durham. We all grew up in not only supportive of the Black press, but participating in various ways to support journalism, as well as speaking truth to power. So thank you, Stacey, and I really want to thank you and Karen Carter Richards, the chair of the NNPA, and all of the 230 African American owned newspapers and media companies representing the National Newspaper Publishers Association for their very kind and very sincere expressions of condolence.
Yeah, absolutely, Dr. Chavis, and our thoughts will continue to be with you. We know that funeral service have been set for January the 8th, Saturday. More details about that you can find at blackpressusa.com, and many of our member newspapers. It's going to be in Oxford, North Carolina, I understand. So, Dr. Chavis, continued peace to you and your family. You guys have done and contributed so much to the American landscape, to the global landscape. So we appreciate you very much. This morning, we discussed the havoc that the Omicron variant is causing, and we hit the streets of the Big Apple and the world's most famous arena to speak with New Yorkers about how they are handling the virus. But first, we start by bringing on our guest to help us with the headlines this morning, James Wright of the Washington Informer and Paris Brown of the Baltimore Times. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Paris, and good morning, James.
Good morning, Dr.
Good morning, Dr. Chavis.
And thanks for joining us this morning. Our first news headline of the day: Virginia Attorney General Mark Herring has filed a lawsuit against the town of Windsor, where police violently stopped a Black military officer, held him at gunpoint, struck him, and pepper sprayed him. Herring, a Democrat, wants court-ordered monitoring of the police department. He has asked the court to order the town to adopt policies and procedures that ensure bias-free traffic stops. The filing comes a little more than 1 year after the December 5th, 2020 encounter initiated by police officers with Army Lieutenant Karen Nazario, I should say. He was dressed in his military gear at the time that this happened, and police held the lieutenant at gunpoint. And as we said, they struck him. They pepper sprayed him. One of the officers, when he told the officer he was afraid to get out of the car, one of the officers could be heard on the video saying, "You should be scared." Well, the Attorney General said that in their review, since this incident, traffic stops in that town have been outstanding among Black motorists. They're stopping Black motorists for no reason at all. So we're going to see James and Paris and Dr. Chavis how this plays out in the civil courts.
Absolutely. What we should point out, I think, for our viewers, that this is not an isolated incident in Virginia.
Right.
This is a symptom, a indication that the criminal justice system itself, and of course the police department, is just one aspect of the criminal justice system. But when we hear the need for criminal justice reform, particularly with police and courts and prosecutors, we know that the House of Representatives has passed the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, but the Senate has refused to pass it. And so we got some really work to do in 2022. I'm glad that they're taking this action in that particular municipality. But again, we should see this as not as an isolated matter, but representative of the institutionalization of white supremacy and law enforcement.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like, Paris, you wanted to weigh in?
Yes, I do. And when you, and Dr. Chavis is absolutely right. And I'm glad that this is now being provided a platform for it to play out. And absolutely right. And this is over the course of 14 months. And they're finding out what we already know, right? And so when you look at the population, there are a lot of stats that came out. When you look at the population of the city, they represent 9 to 22%, but yet they account for 200 to 500% of the stops. And then they also found some discrepancies in what's been reported. And so I am glad that this is being brought to center stage. And it's just one small example in a small municipality of what's playing out nationally.
Yeah, absolutely. Just want to point out, Dr. Chavis, Bert E. Schumann sends his deepest condolences to your family. He says that your sister was a true Renaissance person. Also want to say good morning to our chair who just logged in, started watching us, Karen Carter Riches out in Houston, Texas, the publisher of the Houston Forward Times. Dr. Chavis, James, and Paris, our next news topic this morning, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Yep, she's in the news again, but here's why. Twitter yesterday permanently suspended the personal account of the representative, who is a Republican from Georgia, after the company says she had violated its COVID-19 misinformation policies. Twitter suspended Representative Greene's account after she tweeted on Saturday falsely about extremely high amounts of COVID vaccine deaths. She included a misleading chart that pulled information from a government database of unverified raw data called the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, or VAERS, a decades-old system that relies on self-reporting cases from patients and healthcare providers. Twitter said that Greene had a fifth strike, which meant that her account will not be restored. You know, it's interesting that Twitter takes this action, but when is the House of Representatives going to take action against folks like her and Lauren Boebert?
Well, Twitter is more accountable than the Congress. I would say good riddance. That, you know, I wish they could take her off of all platforms. You know, you can rest assured she would not be coming on Let It Be Known.
You're right, Dr. She needs no platform. She needs no platform because when you look at the stats, also 50% of people believe government. And so we put our trust, right, in our government. So people are not getting vaccinated because they believe half of this false narrative. And I am so glad they got off. She had 5 strikes. Come on. She had 5 warnings that this is not okay. And I had a moment to take a look at their policy. Their policy is extensive. Mm-hmm. There's no misunderstanding that she truly violated it. I'm so glad that she's off. And they need to vet a whole lot of them. Quite frankly, a lot of them don't need a stage because you're talking about national security threat. Mm-hmm. They need to really look at this. This is a national health threat. to have them on this type of platform.
Well, Stacey, let me say this. If I was on the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, I would love Marjorie Taylor Greene, because all you have to do is go to those suburban districts, those swing districts, and just push her as a potential Republican leader. And I bet you will get some very positive results. If the Democrats will get some very positive results, if they know that people like Marjorie Taylor Greene may play a role, if any, in the next Congress. If the Republicans take the House, that might help the Democrats keep the House.
Well, you know, it's funny you say that. It's interesting you say that, I should say, because these extreme behavior that we are seeing. We found a story that's on Black Press USA yesterday about the Republicans going after Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the representative out of New York, the Democratic representative. And we know one of the things, she's sitting there, she's eating and having a drink with her boyfriend, a man she identified as her boyfriend in Florida, and she doesn't have a mask on. But who wears a mask when you're eating and drinking? We're seeing some extreme behavior, really is the point. We see it from Marjorie Taylor Greene, whether you agree with her or not. We see it from Lauren Boebert, whether you agree with her or not. We've seen the attacks. I mentioned AOC because you've seen attacks on her. We saw the Paul Gosar basically tweet killing her earlier this year. So we're seeing some extreme behavior. Where in this is the constituents being taken into account by these lawmakers?
Well, here's the situation. Remember, this is January the 3rd. In 3 more days, we will have an observance of the insurrection that happened a year ago on January the 6th, 2021. What led up to January the 6th? It was this extreme behavior. It was these extreme policies. Yeah. It was these extreme leaders. First of all, from the former president himself, was an extreme spokesperson, defender of white supremacy, defender of racism, defender of voter suppression, defender of not giving people adequate health care, defender of playing down the potence of the pandemic, even quitting the World Health Organization during a global pandemic. I mean, these are idiots, and they as Senator from the Midwest just said, Sister Cheney, that former President Trump should not be allowed anywhere near the Oval Office again because of his extreme record of devastating. These people have nothing to do with democracy. They're not only anti-Black, they're anti-democratic. Yeah. And so for those on the Republican side who continue to camouflage this extreme white supremacy, they need to be voted out of office also. Mm-hmm.
Well, and speaking of misinformation, let's get to some real information. As another surge of COVID cases have swept the U.S., school districts around the country are pushing to keep classrooms open this week when students have returned from winter breaks. Officials in the country's largest school system, New York City, said that they will double in-school testing of students even without symptoms or exposure, test both vaccinated and unvaccinated students, and deploy millions of at-home rapid tests as the city and state deal with record-shattering daily case counts because of the Omicron variant of the coronavirus. Let it be known, we were in New York yesterday, and we got these reactions from some in New York, from Madison Square Garden and from Macy's and 34th Street, as you see there, a COVID testing site. Some of the thoughts we got from New York. Let's go to those clips that we got from folks talking about. We talked to those who were vaccinated, unvaccinated, and those who had recovered from the COVID-19.
Quarantining because I caught the COVID from here, honestly.
And how are you doing now?
I'm doing much better. I feel like 100% better, honestly.
Well, you look great.
Thank you so much.
You look great.
Thank you.
And this Omicron variant is really prevalent here in New York City.
Yes.
What are you doing to protect yourself?
Well, I'm keeping my mask on. I'm constantly washing my hands and constantly cleaning my hands, and trying to stay safe, I guess.
And what's the atmosphere here? What's the feeling? Are we afraid, or are we just living life?
Honestly, I'm not afraid. I'm living life. I'm doing my job the best way I know how, and that's it.
That's even before COVID. Those are just measures that you do, sanitary, hygienical purposes of not being able to contaminate your eyes or your lips. That's the whole key. And that's how I've been here. I've been COVID negative for the whole time until the vaccine was actually created. And one of the reasons I know is that early, good hygienical methods, I don't touch my face or my lips. And that's how I think I scapegoat the actual pandemic at an early introduction.
Now, this is the biggest store in the world, Macy's, on 34th Street, Manhattan, 8th Avenue, 7th Avenue. A lot of people. Does that worry you at all? You have so many customers.
There's always a concern, but I'm pretty much, when I wear my mask, I wear our mask. I pretty much, as far as like my associates, we're all are on the same team. We wash our hands. If you see the sanitizers near the registers, we all follow the guidelines of the CDC.
And there's just a couple of folks that we spoke to in New York yesterday. James, Paris, your thoughts? And of course, Dr. Chavis.
Mhm.
Well, Washington, D.C. is a hotspot in terms of COVID-19, especially since the emergence of the Omicron variant. The city has taken quite extensive measures in order to address this, including on January the 15th, you'll have to have a vaccine card or proof of vaccine in order to go into certain restaurants and establishments. This is somewhat controversial, but as the mayor said in a press conference last week, these are the things that must be done in order to combat this virus.
Yeah, and you mentioned the vaccine cards. That's a staple in New York. You can't go into a Broadway show or a restaurant or a hotel without a vaccination card. Paris, the young lady that you saw in that tape, she worked at Madison Square Garden. You need a vaccination card to get into Madison Square Garden. Are those measures something that we should see nationwide?
It's interesting. I like the fact that you picked two very large places where there are a lot of people going through. I was in New York 2 months ago, and you couldn't get a cup of coffee unless you were vaccinated. Mm-hmm. And I mean, this is a small little shop in Dumbo. We joked about Dumbo earlier. I think that, first of all, New York was a hot spot. It still is a hot spot, but I think that the measures that they're taking, and I'm so glad that you reported on what they're doing and how they are continuing to live life and coexist, I should say, with the variant. But I do believe that that a lot of cities need to adopt a lot of what they've done. We have to continue to live life. We know that shutting down doesn't necessarily help. And I think that what you have reported on is how each individual plays a part in helping to mitigate the exposure of the variant.
Yeah, and one person, we don't have the video for that one, though it didn't come out correctly, unfortunately, but he talked about how he's not been sick. No one in his family has been sick, but he's also not been vaccinated. Now, people like that who are not vaccinated by now, Dr. Chavis, are they, should we classify them as anti-vaxxers?
Well, I just think that the truth is always the best policy. Either you're for the vaccination or you're against it. There's no middle ground. And it seems like he was taking a middle ground position. And if he has not been infected, he should get on his knees and thank the Lord. But he should not take it for granted. He could be asymptomatic, but asymptomatic could be carrying the virus. Keep in mind, he said he doesn't have it. But has he been tested? He doesn't know he doesn't have it. You can be carrying the virus without the symptoms. That's what asymptomatic means. There are no symptoms that are evident, but you have it. So while he said to you he doesn't have it, he really doesn't know that he doesn't have it. And
Yeah.
he doesn't know that he may be infecting his loved ones, not just his immediate family, but the people he become in contact with. So yes, Dr. Fauci, I agree with him. The problem is the unvaccinated, because there are millions, not thousands, there are millions of Americans who have not been vaccinated. We're going to go into the second year of this global pandemic, and people are still not taking it seriously. And unfortunately, even in the African American community, as Malcolm would say, too many of our people are going for the okadoke. They're going for the rumors. They're going for the stereotypes. They're going for these falsehoods, fake news. That's why we need the black press to bust up all this fake news.
Yeah, and I want to, Paris, you're a New Yorker. You're a native New Yorker. I think about going back to the young lady at Madison Square Garden. She said something that I thought was very interesting. She had just come back to work after experiencing a bout with COVID. And she said that, no, she's not going to live her life afraid. She's going to do what she can to protect herself. You saw her wearing a mask. Madison Square Garden yesterday, there was a National Hockey League game. The New York Rangers played the defending Stanley Cup champion, Tampa Bay Lightning. So there was 16,000 people in Madison Square Garden yesterday. She said she's not living her life afraid. Your thoughts on that?
Well, New York has a lot of people, a lot of people everywhere. And so I agree. I think that you have to do everything you can individually to mitigate it. And I agree, you can't live your life afraid, not in New York City. There's nowhere you can go. You can't go to the subway. You can't go to the grocery store. There are people everywhere. So I think it's important to do what they're doing, to do the best they can to mitigate their exposure. But I agree with what Dr. Chavis said. The two big reasons why people are not getting vaccinated, one are the false narratives. And the other reason, the two largest reasons, is they don't believe that it's serious. And if you don't believe that it's serious in the US, why don't you just look at the global stage? If you don't believe the US, I mean, there's too much happening globally to suggest that this is serious and that this is a major problem.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that too, Paris. James, Dr. Chavis, just yesterday there was news out of Israel where a woman died. They said she had both the flu and the coronavirus. They, in fact, dubbed it flu-rona. Is that something else to be concerned about as we think about vaccinations and as we think about how we should carry on during this pandemic?
Well, as someone who got their booster and their flu shot at the same time, I think this is something that's very serious. And let me just say that I'm going to take a little bit of a hard line because I do agree with Dr. Chavis. I do support vaccine mandates. You do need vaccine mandates because this is a public health emergency, and this is nothing to play with. And I believe that government agencies, governmental bodies have the right and authority to impose, if necessary, a vaccine mandate on every American citizen, because this is killing people. This is serious. This is just how I feel. But I feel that the anti-vaxxers are wrong, and we must have a vaccine mandate.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, James, I think a vaccine mandate, I can't agree more. Folks should get vaccinated. In my opinion, that's my feeling, because like Dr. Chavis alluded to, and actually, Dr. Chavis, this will actually be the third year of the pandemic. We went through it at all of 2020, all of 2021, and now we're in 2022. And last year, you led the charge with the NMPA. You declared a state of emergency for Black America.
And that state of emergency still exists. And I think that what we are advocating is how Black people have to survive through this pandemic, not throw our hands up, not give in, not let COVID-19 win in our community. And there has been now studies have shown that more and more Black people are becoming vaccinated. More and more Black people today are wearing their masks, are washing their hands, and taking it seriously. But there's still a small percentage of African Americans who are still going for the misinformation. And that's why I'm thankful, Stacy, that let it be known that we continue to harp on this, because it's our responsibility to try to help keep our communities safe, keep our families safe. And you know, we when we plead our own cause, sometimes we also have to plead our own warnings. We have to plead how our brothers and sisters can stay safe. We advise our young people how to stay safe when pulled over by the police. So we also have to advise our people how to stay safe during a major global pandemic that's killing thousands of people per day in the United States. Thousands are dying per day from this virus. So it is the most serious public health crisis that we've had in over 100 years. And if any of our brothers and sisters who are listening, please take this seriously. This is a matter of life and death.
Yeah, James Wright of the Washington Informer, just want to get a brief 30 seconds closing the argument from you.
Basically, people really need to take this seriously. As Dr. Chavis said, they need to get vaccinated. They need to get the booster. And also, as you referred to the lady in Israel, needs to get the flu shot. This is not a joke. This is very seriously. This virus will kill you, and it is killing our people. Get vaccinated.
Paris Brown of the Baltimore Times.
Sure, I agree both with Dr. Chavis and James. Get vaccinated. The vaccine is not killing people. It is the variant. It is COVID. It is Omicron that is killing people.
Yeah, and before we close, again, a reminder coming up just in a couple of weeks, the NMPA's Midwinter Conference. The NMPA's Midwinter Training Conference kicks off January 19th. We'll be at the Diplomat Beach Resort in Hollywood, Florida, where the theme is the publishing industry, advancing the Black press of America, reaffirming, engaging, and empowering. All are welcome. The NMPA will follow strict COVID guidelines, masking, etc. Join us if you can at the Diplomat in Hollywood, Florida. Dr. Chavis, before we close, obviously, I just wanted to let you know that more and more thoughts are coming in to the family. Jeffrey Clemens writes in, my condolences to Dr. Chavis and his family. Also, Julie Partey of the NMPA. Norman Rich, of course, he's watching this morning. He says this is sad news, especially during the holidays. Jason Roberts, Derek Wood, Okina Jenkins, Dr. Elizabeth Primus, Ron Burke, and of course, the NMPA's Executive Administrator, Claudette Perry, also extends their deepest and heartfelt condolences. Dr. Chavis, give you the last word today as we remember your sister, Dr. Ortho.
Thank you very much. And I also want everybody to remember Mary Alice Thatch, our distinguished publisher, who also passed away. Her funeral is this coming Wednesday. I'll be attending that funeral on behalf of the NMPA. And then my sister's funeral is this coming Saturday, also in North Carolina. So this is a time of bereavement, sadness, but it's also a time of joy. And what I mean by that, joy to keep these legacies of freedom fighting brothers and sisters alive. As we go into 2022, we have to fight for freedom, justice, and equality harder than we've ever had in the past. We learn from the past. We don't need to repeat the past. And I'm so thankful that on the 195th year of the Black Press of America, the NMPA is ready. We're fired up. Yes, we're going to Florida, but we're going to Florida safe. And we're going to Florida with our mask on, vaccinated, boost. We're going to be checking everybody's temperature before they come in each of these sessions. And we're doing everything possible to keep ourselves safe. The Black press, we have to practice what we preach. And so as we extol people to be safe, we ourselves have to practice also being safe, even as we gather for our historic 2022 Midwinter Conference. And I just, because I'm a news person, I just got to drop, Stacy, some breaking news about the Midwinter Conference. We've just confirmed the phenomenal Stephanie Mills will be performing live at the Midwinter Conference in Hollywood, Florida, at the Oceanfront Beach Resort, the Diplomat, on Friday, January 21st.
That is huge breaking news, and we know Stephanie just made some huge news at the Versus. They finally brought her on Versus, and she did everything we thought she was going to do, and really showed why she is a voice of a generation. So that's even more to look forward to. Folks, join us then and join us tomorrow on Let It Be Known as we bring you more information, news and information and discussion that you can use in the Black community to start your day. Thanks for joining us. We will see you tomorrow.